My name is Magdalena Avshalaki. I'm the founder of Hormonal Imbalances. And it didn't happen all by accident. It all pretty much started with my own health crisis, as it happens to a lot of coaches. I think it points back to the time I was born. I was not a breastfed baby, and you probably know that babies get their immune system from mother's milk. My mom bought into the 1970s philosophy of powdered milk being a better solution than mother's milk, and so I was really never breastfed. My immune system was really weak right from the beginning. I mean, I had so many issues of eczema, I had food intolerances to eggs, milk, all dairy products really, gluten, and my mom had no idea that was a problem for a lot of my skin issues. Today I also know that even the well-being of my own mom has a lot to do with my personality and how my adrenals, for example, function. My mom has always been a very anxious, nervous, unsettled person, and the well-being of the mother most certainly impacts my ability to address stress, which impact me so tremendously, as I have learned over the years. The other thing I think that really happened that was so important is the fact that I went on with these food intolerances for many years, and it just went on to manifest themselves in many different ways. Growing up in my teen years, I've always had severe acne. And that went on till I had adult acne until my late 20s, early 30s. Severe migraines, PMSs, quite a lot of hair loss, really bad moods, irregular periods, you name it, it was all there. Today I really realized that this is all connected to the health of my digestive system, which was very far from perfect. You know, I was one of those girls who was declared really healthy by medical standards. I mean, I was a girl who was eating really well. Somehow I didn't really realize that that wasn't really working for me. And that manifested itself in so many different symptoms, which eventually led to more serious stuff like Graves' disease and Hashimoto's. Graves is a form of an autoimmune disease that affects the thyroid. You become hyperthyroid. So that basically manifested in things like just could not sleep at night, heart palpitations, being incredibly angry most of the time, perspiration, just being spoked at any point, couldn't sleep. And like most autoimmune diseases, it later became Hashimoto's disease. And Hashimoto's is also an autoimmune disease, but this time the thyroid really slows down. And in my case, it was manifested in form of depression, having anxiety attacks. I could not function really properly. I could not get out of bed. And there were times when you just have such a high-profile job, you can't admit to anyone that you're really sick. And that adds on to the entire stress that you're going through. The other thing I had, which I had no idea that these were all clear symptoms, was adrenal fatigue. And when you have adrenal fatigue, it basically means that the very glands that produce cortisol, which is your stress hormone, is a hormone that really lets you function in times of stress. And you know, at that time I was working in advertising. I had a very high-profile job that also meant working on Fortune 500 brands. The job was fascinating and I was completely addicted to it. The problem was I didn't realize that all of that led to adrenal fatigue. It basically meant that you were feeling wired and tired, so you are all rattled up, but you just can't go to sleep. In 2012, when after everything was pretty much settled and my thyroid was in a really good shape, my adrenal fatigue, being aware of what was going on, I definitely slowed down. I have completely changed my life in so many ways. I was then diagnosed with estrogen dominance based on the hair loss I was suffering. I mean, I was losing 30% of my hair about every 6 months. Estrogen dominance is one of the leading causes of women having breast cancer. So in my case, it's something that was pretty trivial, you might say, hair loss. But really, it just shows you how your body is basically telling you there's something going on the inside. When you address it at early stages, it's just you're preventing any further diseases. So in some ways, you know, I have grown to believe that being sick sometimes or having specific symptoms that are problematic or unpleasant can be a blessing. You know, as a 40-year-old woman, and I turned 40 in January 2013, I feel better than ever before. I mean, I've got more energy than I had when I was in my 20s. I hardly have any PMSs. I have very evenly distributed energy throughout the day. My hair loss stopped. I sleep 10 hours a day. I make it a point to do so. During our sleep, this is when our body rejuvenates. Detoxification happens during sleep. I mean, our liver does the job between 11 p.m. until 3 o'clock in the morning. And you've got to give it a time and a space and the right, even food in the body in order to function properly and really detoxify everything from the body. The health of your liver is so incredibly important. What did I learn about myself in this process? I think asking the question why is just so important, and just being constantly very, very curious about why is it happening? What is it all coming from? With that came also a realization that not everything the Western doctors tell you, or for that matter, probably any doctor tells you, it has to be true. I was the perfect eater. Hey, I was the girl who would bring a smoothie in the morning to work, and I had a salad for lunch, and dinner was typically something that I tried to cook at home. And guess what? I had a lot of challenges. And so what I've learned is being a good eater, it's a very subjective issue of what good eating means, but the most important thing out of this is what is it that your body does with the food that you're consuming? It could be really great food you're eating, but if your body is not tolerating it well, that's the end of it. And that's what I've learned. Seeing these things as we go right now also opens me up to preventing other diseases from happening in the future, far more serious ones. What would be the message for you? You know, when I ask my clients, what is the biggest thing you've learned from working with me? They will say, listening to my body. It's not what your doctors are telling you. It's not what the blood work is showing you. It's what you hear from your body's responses to the environment and the food that you are feeding it. I think specifically when it comes to hormones balancing, there is a belief that apart from doing pills and creams, there's nothing else that can help us. And that is so absolutely not correct. Our body's ability to self-heal is so incredibly powerful, but it's only provided that we give it the right environment in terms of nutrition, a good emotional place, a form of exercise or movement of the body, detoxification in the environment we live in. If you just create that environment that's conducive for the body to heal, there's incredible things that can happen. And it's not just about weight loss, it's not about just changing a mood or having beautiful hair. It's really about just a total hormonal rebalance, and you're gonna feel like you have never felt before. Tuning into the body, listening to it, and responding and respecting it is really what needs to be done. Because if I did it, so can you.